It has been a difficult first 100 days in office for the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Since he became head of the Christian Democrats, the CDU, in 2023, he's put his party back on a more conservative path, one that he hoped to follow as German leader. But a coalition with long-standing political rivals, the Social Democrats, has forced him to make compromises. Now, Merz had said that he hoped the first results of his chancellorship would be visible by the late summer. So far, polls show a majority of Germans are unconvinced. Let's take a look at some of the challenges that he has faced.
Friedrich Merz came into office with the promise of change in three key areas: toughening Germany's migration policy, lifting the economy out of recession, and showing German leadership in Europe and the world.
Germany is back on track.
Delivering all that while keeping the support of coalition MPs from different parties was not going to be easy. In the vote in Parliament to elect Merz as Chancellor, some of those MPs did not back him in the first round, causing hours of turmoil in the Bundestag. It was a bumpy start for Germany's new leader.
So help me God.
Within hours of taking office, Merz was on his way to visit Germany's partners and neighbours. But as he arrived in the Polish capital Warsaw, his government announced it was tightening border checks with Poland and some asylum seekers would be turned back. A move unpopular with Poland and some other EU countries, which is being contested in the courts. When it came to Donald Trump, Merz's key aim was to get on with the US president and avoid bust-ups. In the Oval Office, he charmed Trump with reminders of his German ancestry and declarations of solidarity.
We owe the Americans a lot. We will never forget about that. And so with your German provenance, I think this is a very good basis for close cooperation between America and Germany.
A new pledge that Germany would spend 5% of GDP on defence also helped to satisfy US expectations. Money for defence is one way Merz hopes to boost investment in the German economy. He's also promised billions to modernise infrastructure, such as bridges and the rail network. Public spending may not be Merz's preferred route to growth. He is a conservative after all, but it could secure jobs and encourage firms to invest. So far, though, the economy remains weak, which in part explains why Merz has focused on foreign policy. On the Middle East, he initially took a firm stance alongside Israel, for instance, when it attacked targets in Iran.
This is our dirty work, which Israel is doing for us all.
But as the Gaza conflict raged on, Merz appeared to add new nuance to the policy of solidarity with Israel, announcing last week Germany would no longer send Israel weapons that could be used in Gaza. Both Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and many in Merz's own party criticised the change of tack as a mistake. More evidence, if it were needed, that for the new Chancellor there never really was any chance of a 100-day honeymoon.
And we can get more from DW's political correspondent, Julia Sau-Deli. So, Julia, we saw there some of the challenges that Merz has faced at the start of his leadership. Give us your take on the Chancellor's first 100 days.
Well, it was certainly a busy time for him, but also on the international stage. So I would say that his till now short time as Chancellor was definitely impacted by what was happening internationally. We've saw his chancellery basically starting just shortly after Donald Trump returned to the White House in the United States, and we've seen how much of an impact that has had also across the globe. It's a time where the situation in the Middle East is not looking like it's going to resolve soon. We saw the escalation also between Israel and Iran, and also the war in Ukraine is still looming, and now there might be a chance of Donald Trump after his meeting with Vladimir Putin, basically shutting the Europeans out of any possible solution to that conflict. So a lot going on, and I would say that what happened in the first few days of the Chancellor Friedrich Merz, where we saw him traveling to different European capitals, has pretty much set the tone for his 100 days so far. He's been very focused on foreign policy and less on what was happening domestically. And this might also have had an impact on how he's being perceived in the country right now.
Right, as you say, there's a lot going on, but a very big focus on foreign policy. And yet Merz had made some very specific promises, hadn't he? So where do you think he's been able to deliver on those promises, and where hasn't he been able to?
Well, he had promised some very big things. Some of the main topics, as we've also heard from the report, were looking at reviving the languishing German economy or curbing migration. And these are issues where it's hard to see results already after 100 days. And it's also hard to really draw a balance on this. But overall, it seems like some of the things that Merz had promised during the election campaign and at the beginning of his tenure haven't necessarily come to fruition. For example, he had promised in the election campaign that he was against taking on additional debt to increase spending in Germany. Now, he went ahead and did just that even before he was elected chancellor. It was sort of like the first thing we saw coming from Merz. He also had promised to reduce electricity taxes here in the country. And he also changed to a degree his stance towards Israel. He had always said he was unconditionally supporting the Israeli government. We've seen him toughening his stance there. So in some ways, it's maybe less not having delivered, but more possibly perceived as walking back on some of his promises.
So we mentioned the polls earlier. Tell us more about how people actually feel about the job that he's doing.
Well, we've seen in the polls a drop of 10% in how people think that Friedrich Merz can actually carry the country through a crisis. That is quite significant. We've seen that only 1/3 of people polled in Germany believe that he has a good communication. And looking at polls in general and comparing them to his predecessors, Olaf Scholz and Angela Merkel, he has the lowest approval rate among them all after 100 days in office. So it's not looking that great for Merz. Now, it's hard to tell what the reasoning behind this low approval rating is. It could be the perception that he didn't make good on his promises. It could be his focus on foreign policy that doesn't necessarily play out well with a domestic audience. But we asked people in Berlin what they thought of Merz and the beginning of his tenure, so we can have a listen.
Yeah, could be better.
Things are looking up. I hope it stays that way.
I didn't vote for him. And I wouldn't vote for him. I have to be honest about that.
He just makes a good impression.
I think it's bad that promises made before the election are being broken. And in that respect, I find it disappointing. I'm disappointed.
We need to become more European. That's a big problem in Germany. We are drifting apart.
What's happening with Ukraine is very good. With the new deal with Trump, a few things could be improved. In my opinion, Merz sides a bit too much with Trump.
I don't see anything changing. Nothing changed. The previous coalition fell apart and the new coalition is continuing in the same vein as before.
I'd want politics to be all about peace. I'm not a fan of war at all. And maybe that's because I'm a woman. It's always men who get into wars, right? But there are plenty of women who feel the same way, and I'm totally against it. I wish things were different.
So definitely not overwhelmingly positive there, Julia. How stable, therefore, is the coalition government headed by Merz?
At the moment, we see Merz going through a little wobble, I would say, not only with his coalition partner, the Social Democrats, but also within his own conservative bloc. Just last night, there was reportedly a crisis meeting with some of Merz's closest allies within his conservative bloc to smooth out some issues. For example, there has been quite some criticism and disagreement within his bloc about his decision to stop delivering weapons to Israel that could be used in Gaza. Some think the move is the wrong one. Some think the decision wasn't communicated well enough. So Merz is trying to smooth out those problems within his own partners. But there has also been some wobbles with the coalition partners, the Social Democrats. There has been some miscommunication regarding the approval of a judge for the Constitutional Court that was proposed by the Social Democrats, and the Conservatives decided not to support that nomination. So certainly, I wouldn't say there is any risk to the coalition and its stability right now, but there are some communication issues that need to be resolved both within Merz's own party and his own bloc, but also with its partner, the Social Democrats.
Julia Saudelli, DW's political correspondent, thank you so much for bringing us up to date.